Alrighty guys, today I'm going to be showing you some of the best end-game builds for Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. Let's get into it. A couple of quick notes before we get started. I have beaten the game on the normal difficulty. I played the whole game through normal difficulty with very minimal grinding. That's not to say I'm an expert, but that is to say I have done a lot of different builds, a lot of different testing, and these are two of the builds that I've found to be the best. I think these builds can be used to beat every boss in the game, including secret bosses, super bosses, and the end game boss. And I would say, before we get into this, that you make sure you have access to the grinding spot that I have made a video on in the past. This is a place that you can infinitely grind JP, XP, and PEG for very, very little time, and it's very, very easy. So if you haven't seen that video, go ahead and go check that out. I uploaded a few weeks back, so should be very helpful for anybody looking to get these in-game builds started. So let's just start off with the first build. I have two of them, one being physical and one of them being magical, so we'll go ahead and start with physical first. Very first thing I'd recommend you do is make sure all of your characters are level 99. You want them to be level 99, it'll be easier to compare, because if you show up and you're like, oh, well, my level 60 Tiz is getting killed by the final boss in the game with your setup. Well, that's because they're not level 99. Go ahead, get to level 99, and if you have all these builds online already and haven't made to level 99, I'm surprised, so you should let me know in the comments how you did that, because it's very, very difficult to actually get to the end of the game without being level 99. So, for this very first physical build, which I like to call the jump build, or the dragoon build, you're going to want to have two primary classes maxed out. The first is going to be your thief. You want your thief on all four characters to be totally maxed out. This gives them all the buffs, it gives them everything they need, and it makes them as strong as they can possibly be. So, very first thing, make them all thieves, make it all level 14 thieves. That is step 1. Step 2, to max out all your characters, is to max out your Valkyrie job. So your Valkyrie job needs to be at least level 9 for all 4 of your characters, because you want access to the high jump ability. You don't need anything else, but you need them all to at least have high jump, which is the level 9 ability. I maxed them all out just because I think it's fun, but all you need is to have a max level thief and a level 9 Valkyrie on every single job. Now, for all of these builds, both the builds I'll be showing, you have your attacking characters and you have your support character. You only need one. I'm going to start by explaining the support character because I think it's much easier. So my support character is always on yes. So for my support character for the physical end-game build, you want to max out Time Mage. You want access to the level 14 ability, Hasten World. So, again, make sure whoever is your support character, you max out their Thief, you get their Valkyrie to at least level 9 for high jump, and you max out the Time Mage so you get access to the ability, Hasten World. Now, for your damage dealing characters, there's going to be 3 of them. Mine are Ringabel, Edea, and Tiz. You want to max out the Thief, like I previously mentioned. You want the Valkyrie to be level 9, so you get access to high jump. And then the only other job you need for them is actually Knight to be level 2. You want this two-handed ability that you get from Knight level 2. And once you have all of those jobs and those abilities unlocked, you're ready to go ahead and get the first in-game build online. So, for your abilities, for your 3 physical damage dealers, you're going to want to make sure you are a thief. That is going to be your primary job. You want the job command acrobatics, so that way you have access to the high jump ability. And then for your support abilities, you want speed 20%, which comes from the thief. You want speed 10%, which also comes from the thief. You want two-handed, which as I mentioned, comes from the knight. And then you want spear lore. Spear lore comes from the Valkyrie. You should get it before you get high jump. But this lets you equip a spear in 2 hands and act very, very fast. That's going to be the same for all 3 of your attackers, which for me are Ringabel, Edea, and Tiz. As for your support character, same thing. You want them to be a thief as their primary job. You want them to have acrobatics from the Valkyrie. And then you want them to have speed 20%. This is again from the thief. I give mine spear lore. I don't think it's necessary, but I do give my support character spear lore. And then most important thing is Hasten World. The way Hasten World works is that every turn, both all your allies and your enemies gain 1 BP. However, with this strategy, you do not have to worry about your enemies gaining BP. So again, for your physical attackers, it's Thieves with Acrobats as their job command, Speed 20, Spear Lore, two-handed, and Speed 10. And for your support character, it's Thief with Acrobatics, speed 20, spear lore, and hasten world. Now, let's talk about the equipment for all of these characters. So, for your 3 attacking characters, you're going to be running basically the exact same setup. I like to run Mage's Hat and Black Robes, however, it does not matter what you run here. Honestly, just give them whatever either gives them the fastest agility and dexterity, or just give them whatever you like to give them. Most of these hats actually will not impact their speed, and same with the clothes here, the robes, they won't really impact speed, so just give them whatever you want here. The very, very important one is both their weapon and their accessory. So for their weapon, just give them the best glaive or spear you have. So for me, I have silver glaives on everyone, except for Edea here. She's my strongest character, so I give her the Gungnir, so she does a little bit more damage. And then I like to give 2 characters Hermes shoes. You can get 2 naturally through the game. You can get a 3rd, but it required stealing from a very specific boss that I didn't steal from. So by the end of the game, you should have 2 Hermes shoes and 2 Hermes sandals. So I like to give Edea and Tiz my Hermes shoes. These increase your agility by a lot. It increases your agility by 20, so it makes your characters very, very quick. And then for my other attacker, I give them the Hermes sandals. This only increases it by 10, but still it will increase your agility. Now, as for your support character, because they do not have a 2-handed, I just give them 2 glaives. They're going to do significantly less damage, but I do give them the 2 glaives. And then in my case, because they also have less speed in their abilities, I give them the red cap. The red cap actually increases your agility, and then I just threw the brave suit on because, again, throw on whatever clothes you want. But the red cap does increase agility, as well as Hermes sandals that increases agility. What we're aiming for here is the highest agility possible on every character. I recommend having your agility at least over 100, and if you can, have it over 110. This makes it so you outspeed every character in the game. So what agility does is it determines when you act in combat. So the higher agility, the quicker your characters act, so that way they can act before the enemy. So when you have all of that set up for all of your characters, I'm just going to quickly flip through here so you can see it. It's time to start trying out the build on some bosses. So we are here in one of the super boss fights. This is the Nightmare Pillow fight in Kaldizla at nighttime. This is Baal Eye Turtle Dove. And what we're going to do for this build, this is our physical build, is we are going to go ahead and we are just going to use our abilities. We're going to go to acrobatics and we're going to high jump. This is a powerful attack where next turn we actually attack. So we dodge for a turn and then we attack the next turn. You do more damage with the spear, which is why we equipped the spears. So we're going to go ahead and high jump. High jump. It costs 2 BP per high jump, which is why we have Hasten World on. We're going to high jump. I'm going to go ahead and slow down this gameplay so that way you can see what's about to happen. All my characters jump up in the air. They go first because they have high agility. He then tries to use an attack, but can't because we're in the air. And then we land. And because he used BP, he doesn't get to use anything. I believe he actually loses BP there. So then all we're going to do is we're going to high jump again. And because we're quicker, we jump before he attacks. He tries to attack but doesn't do anything because we're in the air. We then land, doing about 7,000 to 9,000 damage per attack. And sometimes we get a crit. You're going to see our support character is only going to do about 1,200, but it does work. So all we have to do now is we actually have to just hit repeat. We can use the auto feature and we can just beat. This is truly one of the hardest bosses in the game. I think probably the second hardest. This boss has one-shot potential. It can do 9,999 damage to you with its attacks, and it can also inflict status effects on you. So by using this strategy here, we can completely avoid all of that. I would say that this strategy is best used for enemies and monsters that are weak to physical damage or don't have very high physical defense. Also, ones that it's just a solo fight. If you're fighting multiple enemies, this isn't the best strategy because you can only target one enemy at a time. However, I did use this strategy for multiple super bosses as well as a bunch of the asterisk fights in the endgame during Chapter 8 because it let me avoid all attacks that were coming at me as well as dealing high damage back out. So again, this is just the physical damage version of my endgame build. I find this to be very, very useful. We'll go ahead and speed this up just so you can see. I'm not going to be hit this entire fight. We're just going to sit here. We're going to let this play out. it shouldn't last very much longer because we are doing almost max damage 3 times per turn. He really tried to use a lot of BP there. Again, it should be ending any second now. This is I would say these strategies I'm going to be showing are pretty brain dead strategies. You just have to auto, and sometimes you have to make slight adjustments depending on the boss. But for the most part, these just work every time. I find that there's a very, very little issues with these strategies. It makes it so that way, sure, you're quote-unquote cheesing bosses in the end game. However, are you really cheesing them? You worked to get to level 99. You worked to get your jobs leveled up. You got the best gear in the game, and now you're just making your life easier to beat some of these hard bosses that truly can one-shot you, and I feel like strategies like this were invented for it. And just like that, we beat one of the hardest super bosses in the game without ever being hit. You also get a ton of rewards for this. You get some JP, you get some XP. Now, this is just from this boss specifically. However, again, this strategy does work for many, many bosses. I used it for almost every asterisk fight at the end of the game during Chapter 8, as well as multiple super bosses through the Nightmare Pillows. And so that is my first build I'd recommend. My second build is going to be the magical focused build. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing you're going to want to do for this magical build is you are going to want 3 very specific genome abilities. If you don't know what genome abilities are, your vampire job has the ability to absorb enemy attacks and make them their own. So the 3 genome abilities we're looking for are Thundaja, Blizzaja, and Fairy. If you don't know where these are, you can always just look them up. However, I will just show you the easiest way to find them. So right here in Kaldizla, I have vampires equipped. We're going to go ahead and go talk to the inn, and we want to rest with a pillow during the day. This is going to spawn a super boss, which can hit you with all 3 of those attacks. So right here is Belphegor. The way Belphegor works is he's going to hit you with that Fairy, Blizzaja, and Thundaja randomly. Kind of randomly. And what you want to do is you want to absorb those genome abilities. So basically, Belphegor is currently in a certain elemental state. So we're going to go ahead and default. And we want to be hit by, I believe that is Thundaja right there. And so then, once you've gotten the ability learned, you're going to go ahead and hit him for his elemental weakness. So right now he's weak to fire, so we're going to hit him for fire. This will change his element now to be a different element. Now it's water, so we'll default again. And now we want to get hit by the next Aja ability, Fairy, Thundaja, or Blizzaja. Now he has other attacks here, so what you can do is you can actually just reload your save file if you didn't get one, or you can just let yourself be defeated here, because you're still going to capture the Ajas, even if you lose, because it doesn't actually give you a game over. When you lose these fights, you just get taken out of the area. It says party wiped out, but you basically just get a full rest. So go ahead, go fight Belphegor, grab your Fairy, Thundaja, and Blizzaja abilities, and that is the first step to getting the magical build online. And also the best way to beat this boss. So, with all 3 of those genome abilities learned, you're going to want to make all 4 of your characters vampire jobs. They don't actually need to be a certain level. I always get mine up to level 14, which is the max, but all they need is to be level 1 to get the genome ability skill, which will let them use genome abilities. Now, just like the last build, this magical build will have 1 support character and 3 damage dealing characters. This is much more important than the previous build because they will have a completely different role during combat. So, again, Agnès is my support character, so the first job and their main job they want is to be a Spirit Master. That Spirit Master needs to be at least level 8 for the ability Stillness. This makes it so that damage to all allies and enemies will be nullified for 2 turns. So 2 turns after this is used, all damage is nullified completely in combat. So that will be their primary job. The secondary job you want on your support character is going to be Performer. You want 1 ability from Performer, and that is going to be Little Devil. This is at level 7, and what it does is it raises all targets' magic attack by 25% for 4 turns. So basically they'll be buffing your damage dealing characters by giving them an additional magic attack every 4 turns. Then, just like the last strategy, you want to have your Thief leveled up. I would prefer to get them to level 14. However, for your support character, all you need is to have the level 5 ability speed 20% up. So as long as your support character has at least a level 5 thief, they're fine. The second one they want, just like the last strategy, is they want their time mage to be max level at level 14. That way they get access to the ability Hasten World. Again, this raises the BP of all allies and enemies by 1 at the end of each turn, so that way you can constantly have BP to use your attacks. As for the abilities for your support character, you want their primary job to be that Spirit Master, and then you want their job command to be Singing. As for the support abilities themselves, you want Hasten World from the Time Mage. You want Support Amp. This isn't entirely necessary, but you might as well run it because you have one spot. This is from the Performer. This is going to make it so that way your ability that makes it so their magic attack increases, the Little Devil, is actually going to do better. And you want speed 20% up. Again, this is from the Thief. This is the build you want for your support character. As for equipment for your support character, you want to give them 2 magic knives. These are bought from the Adventurer. These are from the Norende Construction, but you want to be able to give them 2 magic knives. These are very, very expensive. So again, I highly recommend you watch my guide on how to get a bunch of PG infinitely for a very, very quick time. It'll help you be able to buy both of these magic knives that are very expensive. On top of that, I like to give them the gold hairpin because it reduces MP consumption, making you be able to make the strategy last for a long time, as well as Brave Suit because this starts the battle with an extra BP. Both of these are got through blue chests, so you can go ahead and look up a list of where to find those online, or you can just get them from the Endgame. Either one works. And finally, you want to give them Hermes Sandals. Again, these raise your agility by 10, making them act very, very quick. I like to have my agility sitting around 88 to 90, so anywhere from 85 to 95 is a good spot. The biggest thing is you want your support character's agility to be slower than your other 3 characters. So, with your support character built, let's go ahead and focus on your 3 physical damage dealers. So this will be the same for all 3 of them. For me, it's Ringabel, Edea, and Tiz, but I will only be showcasing one of them off. So very first thing, you want their primary job to be Vampire because they need access to the genome ability. That's all they need is genome ability. I always like to get them up to level 14, but all you need is genome ability. Now, for the big one, you also need all 3 of your damage dealers to have their Swords Master job leveled up to level 14. They need access to this free lunch ability. This makes it so that the MP cost for every skill used in that turn is 0. Technically, it's for 2 turns, but you're not going to get 2 turns off. You're only going to get 1 turn off. But what this does is make it so your MP cost is 0, making it so all your spells are free. And again, just like the previous build, you want your Thief to be leveled up as well, so that way they have the speed at 20% ability. That is a level 5 ability, but I recommend just getting them to level 14 anyways for the previous build, but all you need is speed 20 at level 5 for Thief. And the final job you need to be leveled up for your physical damage dealers is going to be Black Mage. You want your Black Mage to be at least level 12 for the Pierce Magic Defense support ability. This ignores the target's magic defense when dealing magic damage. So even if they have really high magic defense, making it so you deal almost no damage, this Pierce Magic Defense makes it so you get right through that, dealing the most damage possible for your damage dealers. Now, as for the abilities, as I've mentioned, you want your primary job to be Vampire. This gives you access to the genome abilities. It also gives you really, really high speed, which is important for this. On top of that, you want your job command to be Bushido. This is from the Swords Master, so you get access to free lunch. Now, as for your support abilities, you have 2 that you need. You need speed 20% up because you want your speed to be very, very quick, and you need Pierce Magic Defense. Again, this makes it so all your damage gets through their magic defense, making it so you attack fast and deal high magic damage. As for your equipment for your 3 damage dealers, it's going to be very similar to the support character. You're going to want 2 magic knives on all of them. Magic knives, again, are from the merchant through Norende Construction. These cost about $200,000 a piece. So please go watch my video on how to get infinite PG. It'll show you how to make a lot of money so that way you can get these magic knives very, very quickly. What these do is they raise your magic attack, and because they're S rank with Vampire, it makes it so you can get even better effect out of them, making my magic attack 166 and 168 across my 3 damage dealers. On top of that, you want to give them the Hermes shoes or sandals, depending on how many you have. And finally, you want to give them the Mage's Hat and the Black Robe. both of these greatly increase your magic attack. So the Mage's Hat increases your magic attack and intelligence by 5, and the Black Robe increases your magic attack by 3, and the intelligence by 20. So intelligence is used to calculate your damage with magic attacks, so these are the best equipment to give all 3 of your damage dealers. Now, for the Mage's Hat and Black Robe, these actually can only be bought from a very specific merchant, and that merchant is right here at Starkfort. Starkfort is in the bottom left continent, the Eisen continent. So you go ahead and walk in here, and there'll be a merchant off to the right over here that you can actually purchase these from. So don't go to the adventurer, go to this guy right here. Make sure you go to Armory, and make sure to purchase the Mage's Hat. You need 3 of them. And the Black Robe, you need 3 of them. I buy 4 just in case I ever want Agnès to not be a support unit and instead make her a attacker. So now that we've gone over the build for all the characters, let's go ahead and show off how to actually use those characters in battle. So we are right back here in the Belphegor fight. Again, this is the Kaldisla Daytime Nightmare Pillow enemy. This is the very first super boss I actually fought, so it got me learning this strategy very, very well. So what you want to do is for your 3 physical attackers, you want to go ahead and max out their BP here. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and use free lunch, and then you want to use your vampire genome ability, and you want to use the Firaja, Blizzaja, or Thundaja, depending on what the enemy is weak to. So for example, the final boss of the game is weak to blizzard damage, so I just used 3 Blizzajas back to back to back like this. However, I'm showing this off with this guy specifically because his weaknesses change. So he starts on weak to fire, then he goes weak to blizzard, then he goes weak to thunder, then he repeats weak to fire. You have to hit him with those effects or it won't do any damage. The reason I'm showing this off here is because this is actually how I found out about this strategy, so I'll show it off here. So we have free lunch started, and then we're going to go ahead and Firaja, Blizzaja, and Thundaja. If an enemy doesn't have a weakness, I always go with this strategy right here because it just makes the most sense to me. As for your support character, you're going to go ahead and use 2 BP. And you want to, in any order, use Little Devil, which raises all targets' magic attack by 4. And then you want to use Stillness. Again, Stillness nullifies damage for 2 turns for both sides of the battlefield. Then, for your other 2 damage characters, same thing. We're going to free lunch. And again, for this fight specifically, we're going to Firaja, Blizzaja, Thundaja. It depends on the fight. You might do all 3 Firajas, you might do all 3 Blizzajas, all 3 Thundajas. There also is an Eroja, but that's not typically needed for most fights in the game. Let's go ahead and free lunch. Firaja, Blizzaja, and Thundaja. And let's go ahead and hit go. So our characters should act first if they have high enough speed. And what they're going to do is they're going to make it so their spells are completely free. Because we hit a weak spot, we're going to do even more damage, and we're going to go ahead and cast all 3 of these spells. And then, in an ideal world, your other attacker goes. Firaja, Blizzaja, Thundaja. And then in a perfect world, your third attacker goes. However, sometimes, if their speeds are too close together, your support character will cast Stillness first. Again, all Stillness does, it makes it so you don't do any damage. So my third attacker here actually won't deal any damage to the enemy. It's going to get zeros. Again, that's because Stillness happened before your other attacker went. Nothing's broken, nothing's wrong. They just went first. It doesn't actually slow you down whatsoever. Then he's going to hit us, but because Stillness is active, we take 0 damage. He's going to hit us with Sloth, which again, doesn't matter because Stillness is activated, so he can't deal any damage to us. And then it's our turn again, back at 0 BP. We're going to go ahead and repeat again. And we are just going to keep doing this over and over again until we win. This strategy I found is the best build in the entire game. I used this to beat the final boss in the game without being hit a single time. I used it for almost all these super bosses with the Nightmare Pillows, just targeting their weaknesses. I think it's really good. In fact, I felt bad because I felt like this was more cheesy than the physical damage dealing strategy, but I think it's way more effective. Now, there are 2 instances where this strategy does not work, and you might have to do slight adjustments. The first one is if a boss hits you with status effects. stillness does not protect you from status effects. It only protects you from damage. So if they decide to confuse you, then you get confused and it messes up your entire rotation. I have found ways around that. However, it's only been for one boss. It was a very specific scenario, and I got a very quick and easy solution. I have that video up in my Let's Plays, so if you do want to check that out, go ahead and look at my Nightmare Pillow Fight video, and I'll go over how I slightly tweaked this strategy in order to beat that one specific boss. Otherwise, this works on every other boss in the game. The second scenario where this does not work is, first, if the enemy's faster than you. None of these strategies work if the enemy's faster than you, but I don't think any enemies get over 100 agility anyways. But the final boss in the game has one attack that can pierce stillness. I had it used on me one time. He hit Tiz with it, but Tiz came back up at 1 HP due to a dialogue he had where he had to talk. So Tiz came back up. If one character dies, it does not mess anything up. The one character that cannot die for this strategy is your support character. If your support character gets affected by a status effect or dies through a stillness piercing effect, which is only in the final boss fight, then you will have to restart the fight. There's no way around the stillness piercing effect. It just happens sometimes. Again, I got really lucky with it. It only hit me one time. It was at the very end of the fight, so I was able to get Tiz back up at 1 due to a dialogue option and kept the cycle repeating. Now, if a character does die, you can no longer auto. You will have to get them up to continue autoing, just because of the way the AI works in this game. But again, using this strategy, I never died, except for the one time I got confused, and the one time he pierced stillness, but I got back up at 1 HP. So, these are my two favorite strategies to use. I think by end game, they go through every enemy, every boss in the game. Most enemies in this game don't get above level 60, so like, you don't really need to worry about basic enemies. And if you don't want to worry about basic enemies, just go play the mini game so you can get the ability that lets you do 0 encounter rate. That way you don't encounter any basic enemies in the game, because your grinding to level 99 strategy that I've put out is quicker and more efficient than just fighting any enemy you come across throughout the entire game. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let this play out. This is one of the, I would actually say, one of the quicker boss fights using this strategy. I think the final boss took about 30 to 45 minutes to beat, just because he's multiple phases and all that stuff. And if you guys do want to, make sure to check out my Let's Plays on this channel. I put out at least one every single day. It's usually 2, sometimes 3 videos every single day. And it would really help me out if you did find this video helpful to hit that subscribe button. So we're just going to go ahead and beat Belphegor here. He is considered the second hardest boss in the game, just because of these rotating elements that he's weak to. And he summons these little orbs that follow the same pattern as him. But any second now, we should be able to beat him. We'll go ahead and turn this to 4x speed, just to get through it a little bit quicker. This is just to show off that you are basically invincible with this strategy. And if you do want to see me fight the final boss in this game, go check out my finale video on the Let's Play channel. I have it completely done. And right there, he actually got to attack before stillness, but because we were so fast, we got stillness back up. So occasionally they'll get through, but as you've seen, we've been going for 2 or 3 minutes and only one attack got through. And just like that, we beat Belphegor. And so guys, those are the 2 end-game builds that I used at the end of Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. I would say make sure to set it so that way you can easily switch between the 2. This is just my fun build, no reason to go through that, just because I do it for fun. But I would make sure to set these just so you can quickly switch between the 2. I like to call this the physical or jump build, and this one the magic or attack all build. If you guys did find this video useful, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 500 subscribers, so it'll really help me out. It'll help make sure you don't miss any upcoming videos. And so with that, guys, I will see you all in the next one.